Good morning. It is now 8:30, and we will call the special board meeting on May 24th to order. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Davis, if you please do the roll call.
Mrs. Eichholz?
Here.
Mr. Marks?
Here.
Mrs. Singh?
Here.
Mr. Summerall?
Here.
Mr. Tullis?
Here. Can I get a motion to adopt the special meeting agenda, please?
Still move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And with that, we'll move into the work session. Do you want to?
Board members, we're going to be looking at the approval of some construction contracts this morning. We have the project team members here and our consultants. If you have any questions as we move through the GMPs, there are 3 to look at today, and we're going to start with number 7 at the top there under A, number 1. And there was a summary page sent to you yesterday that was then updated and sent to you again this morning. And we have, I think, most of the project team here, if there's any high-level questions you have in review of these GMPs.
So just one quick question is that hold on. So the prices that you have said that it has, for example, for the middle school, you said that the middle school base project scope, it is almost 75% bid out. And it has gone 15% over the budget. So is it 15% over the cushion that we had or with the cushion?
When you say cushion, do you mean
Yeah.
contingency?
Yes, sorry, that's all. You should have said.
It's on. Okay. And so that would be 15% over that, that contingency that we have within there. So we do still have contingencies left, and we want to keep those somewhat intact because we do know that change orders do arise on a basis, and that there is a lot of moving parts within the construction thing. We also have CMR contingency built within, so if there do need to be schedule enhancements or other pieces that in certain buyout that needs to happen amongst the subcontractors, we still have some of those intact. So right now, when we're looking at that, we're looking at the hard costs that are coming in from the marketplace at this point.
Thank you.
The cost increase here, the cumulative increase of 15%, is that, can you quantify how much that is inflation versus how much of that is everything else that could lead to a cost increase, be it project scope, enhancements, general increases, and the like?
So if we're looking at an overall total, not just talking about the middle school here, but right now within the market, what we're looking at is just for the hard costs, when we're going to the subcontractors, when we're bidding this work, we're looking at a $6 million total overage of what we had originally looked at as a project team before. 4 of that is pure market conditions at this point. Probably $2 million of that is what we thought we would do better on buyout, quite honestly, with the submarket. And we were expecting some of the material increases with those market conditions, but with some of the labor markets right now, that's where some of that $2 million struggle is right there. So when we're looking at the middle school, that's probably about 4.5 million as an overage total.
Sorry, so it's about $4 million on hard costs and $2 million on labor, ballpark?
$2 million would be a blend between labor and material that we anticipated, a strong buyout within our numbers. So I discounted.
Sorry, what do you mean by buyout?
So what I did is when we were reconciling DD, our estimate was here. Years of doing buying K-12 buildings specifically, I'm saying, there's typically the estimates come in and we always put the job out on the street and buy it at a better value. So I discounted our estimate at DD submission. because I felt strong going into the end of the year, hitting the first quarter, that we were gonna get that. That didn't happen. What I should have done is not taken the buyout, and then our numbers would only reflect the crazy market we're in with material escalations and the tight labor market, and instead of the additional amount. So the net 6 right now overall is off the hard cost construction subcontract value that we're working our way down. There's still work to do. I think we got about 21 million left to buy, and go through the process.
So, just taking a step back then, the original budget we had for the middle school, what was that number we said on day one? What do we think the middle school was going to be? I guess what I'm trying to get at is, I think we thought it was 40 million, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah, it is. That's what I was looking at.
Yeah, and I'm trying to figure out how much, if we do all of these, how much contingency funds do we have left after today? What have we used and what do we have left?
Well, we have about, I would say, 1.2 in construction or CMR contingency at this point. And then we have 3.6 plus 1.6. What is it? Yeah, 3.2 million in owner contingencies.
So are we not depleting the contingency fund, or are we just coming up with this extra money out of, I guess I'm trying to, we have,
So we didn't want to deplete the contingency fund because overall, we usually use about at least, we try to budget for 5% of what the construction value is for new buildings and about 7% contingency because of unforeseen conditions, change orders. As we move through the process, when we get out of the ground, we have less risk. When we get a building shell, we have less risk. So over time, we can probably take some of that contingency money and use it for overages. But right now, I would advise against it.
so then we say 75% of the middle school is out to bid. This
That-
contract we're signing that we're gonna approve today, what portion of the work is that? And then what's left as far as, we're talking building materials, I'm trying to understand what the
So
risk
that's
is.
the shell of the building. We're
This $6
looking
million
at,
is the building shell?
yeah, we're looking at cold form metal framing.
Roofing.
And we're also looking at roofing,
Okay.
which is a long lead item and why we're trying to get it out early.
It's on the middle school alone, we have about, hang on, pull it up here. Remaining left to bid, 11 million left.
Do you have any idea where you are on that? Have you done any?
We take remaining numbers at the end of May for the rest of the building package. So the entire remaining middle school, the middle schools were the biggest overages. The middle school building packages come in 27, 26. And obviously, we've been doing a lot of, what we want to do is come with cost-saving ideas. For example, on this package in the roofing, originally was $1 million more than the number we're carrying. We sat down with the roofer, a couple of our different subs, got with MSA and the team. We actually pulled that number down to where the roofing is below budget on the middle school, for example. We still have to do that with a lot of packages as they come in, and because what they do is bring ideas. But what we don't want to do is go and say, let's cut out the scope. It's easy to come in and say, hey, we can reduce scope. But for example, we talked yesterday about some areas where we have some different ceiling options. And I think just a 15-minute exercise with the core team probably valued about $180,000. That process will continue.
So, yeah, like when we talk about buyout, that was one of the pieces with the roofing and why it's showing that we are under budget on that GMP, because that's part of the buyout process that we do with the subcontractors as we're looking through those.
What I want to do is try and get out in front of this. I don't want to have to keep going back to these exercises and going back for extra money. I want to get our arms around where we are and make sure we're crystal clear in terms of the monies we're spending. Obviously, I know what's going on with the economy and what's going on with pricing. I'm very aware of that. But again, I want to make sure we're looking at this holistically. We've got a fiduciary responsibility to the community, and I want to make sure we're adhering to that, knowing that we've got extra costs coming in. But again, we need to get out in front of this as soon as possible so that we can minimize these meetings and make sure we totally understand where our costs are coming in so that we've got a clear picture of what we're dealing with.
And I think almost all the packages will be in for bid. May 26th is when they're accepting the bids from Skanska. There's going to be probably about a 2-week period where they work back and forth with the subcontractors at that point. So we are only probably about a month away from really having everything, besides the potential of expanded spaces or anything like that.
That was going to be
Having our
that was
arms
going to be my
around it.
next question, because I think when we talked at our meeting last week, one thing we talked about, and we were, I think, very serious about it, was if these numbers continue to come up and up and up, that could threaten the viability of the expanded music space and wellness center.
Absolutely.
So you think by June, we'll have a pretty good sense of our final cost for middle school, primary school,
And
elementary
elementary.
school?
Yes.
Yeah, my goal would be is, we keep doing what we're doing. We've actually, in the last week, had a really good week with some ideas. that-
Walk me through that. What is, when you say we saved $1 million on the roof, is that we're getting $1 million lesser quality of a roof, or is it other
No,
design
it's
features?
understanding that, there's parts that have a really expensive panel system on it. It's coming with an alternative product that gives us the same quality and look. It's maybe changing the composite of the material, to where if it's an aluminum, high-quality finish, put it on the front, not necessarily on the back of the penthouses that face the west side of the project.
And that's just your
There's-
typical value engineering process?
We call it pre-construction cost events, where we just bring ideas.
Okay.
And we know that, we always like Kirk's, our conversations and meetings have always been good, better, best. A lot of the best is where we start, and then we see where that's at, and then we start working our way down to better, and then good, with good being well above what normal other K-12 have, for example. So it's a matter of just prioritizing things and coming up with ideas. We're meeting with electrical this week. A lot of jobs, we've come back after we've taken the electrical number that's in this budget, and we come back with, hey, bring us all the ideas you got. Sometimes changing one fixture out in a building where we have a whole lot of these produces a pretty nice savings. And it's not that the fixture is any different in quality, it's just that understanding the different options you have.
So let's level set here for just a minute. I understand where you're coming from. I want you to understand where we're coming from. We've got an original construction contract that we agreed to. We've also preliminarily agreed to another 11 million plus for extra added scope value. So if we have added construction costs coming in, then we will have to draw a hard line in the sand and cut things back. So we've got to get out in front of that so that we're keeping you on track as far as the building is going, but we've also got to make sure that we're looking at it from the financial side. So my ask of you is that we get out in front of this as soon as we get those other bids back. We are clearly understanding where you're coming from so that we can all get together, sit back and look at this, and then make whatever adjustments we may have to do on this.
Yeah, one question on that, though. I don't think, these aren't additional scope or change orders. These are just the typical contracts we need to do the project.
Yes.
It's just the timing for you. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, these are the base scope.
Right, but if we do have any change orders, I'm saying that's what I'm sensitive to.
And I think,
Well,
Craig, to your point, that's one of the reasons we've added the Finance Committee meeting and the potential special board meeting for June ahead of the regular June board meeting because of the timing of when the rest of their estimates on their packages should come in. We should be set for that week so that the board can have information ahead of time to
Yes.
review heading into that week.
Yeah, we want to give you more heads up, more ahead of time, and get the numbers set and leveled before you're presented with them, so you've got time to digest those as well.
Great,
So-
thank you.
I just have a recap question. So in terms of the bids that we've received back 75%, is that correct? Or how much have we received back?
Overall, about 75%. So the middle school's about 75% bid out at this point. The elementary is, value-wise, is probably about 50% at this point. And then the primary school is, it's the full GMP package at this point, except minus the HVAC controls, because we're gonna bid that as a different solicitation for district-wide.
So those are what we have out, or those are what we've received back?
Those are all of what we received already.
They received back.
Yeah.
And then of what we've received back, we're 6 million over budget, is that right?
At this point in
Okay.
time, yes.
And
just middle school though, or is that overall?
Overall.
That's overall.
so we're 6 million over, we've got 100% of the primary, 50% of the elementary, 75% ballpark on the middle school.
Yeah.
And then outside of that, 6 million that we're over, the contingency that's left is how much?
We're about
Ballpark.
$3.2
So
million overall.
I just want to make sure that I understand and I appreciate it. So the reality is the 6 million over, if we used all the contingency, which we haven't, but if we use all the contingency to date, we would be in theory, we'd be 2.8 over with 25% left to come back in the middle school, 50% on the elementary. Am
Yeah.
I understanding correctly?
Yes, and,
Okay.
and the value of the elementary is about $6 million for that half
Right.
of what we still have to bid. Middle school, even though we're using percentages, is a much larger,
Sure, it's a
dollar
bigger
figure,
dollar amount of
yeah.
25%.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And then from a bidding, what we have left to bid, my understanding is all the site work, earthwork moving, that's all been bid.
Yes.
And that is generally the largest variable based on the unknown of,
Those are usually your unforeseen conditions, especially with a
Correct.
new building.
Correct.
Because, yeah, getting into the dirt, we found a couple
so is it?
pockets, a couple items
Is it, I mean, obviously, nobody can guarantee anything, but as the risk of a major spike going forward should in theory be less than what it was at the beginning of the project, just because we've gotten through the earthwork, we've gotten through, 50-75% of the project, depending on the school.
Correct. A lot of,
From a bidding standpoint.
Yeah, that's what I mean,
Yeah.
right. I mean, of course, who
I mean,
knows?
we have the middle school pad on grade. There's still risk with site work. The big, $1 million of the risk came when we took the numbers on the middle school, high school site with the underground detention requirements. We were, as opposed to digging a hole, putting it in a pond. We still need to start all the site work on the elementary school, but, pretty relative low risk because it's
Pete,
pretty
excuse
small.
me, can you just repeat what you just said at a high level and summarize it? Because there's other people that pay attention to this meeting who have no idea about construction. The site conditions and the $1 million, explain that again.
Yeah, when we brought the early site package on the middle school, we were required to put detention underground as opposed to digging a hole to let the water go in. That was $1 million just on that site. So in that 6 million overage, 1 million is just related to the site here because, there's not a lot of property.
so when you're saying to dig a hole, I was like, typically on most sites, we have a detention area or retention area for the water that gets taken away from the building. So there's usually some sort of ponding area or something like that. All of this goes into an underground system.
Which
here.
is expensive. So we have to overcome that one site number that's $1 million. What that does is that throws off the percentages of our hard cost that's over. In theory, for what we bid to date, we're about 6%, or no, 5% if we take that out on the early packages. And then when we're tracking with some of this work, we're around 4.
On the elementary school, have we done that analysis yet? Do we have room to do above-ground detention?
The elementary is actually above-ground detention. There's no tanks. The only tanks are on the middle school site here in the back.
So we shouldn't
and in the
expect to
front.
see that delta on the elementary school?
Correct.
So a point of clarification, as far as the bids and getting all the numbers back, are you talking about the numbers back in the next 3 to 4 weeks for just the middle school or all the
Entire
projects?
program. Rest of the
Everything.
remaining packages.
So we will have very clear,
June.
okay, thank you.
And then I have just a clarification on the on the 3 GMPs that we were reading, particularly on the primary, there were a lot of exclusions, and some were excluded because not necessary or whatever. Are any of those exclusions, are they permanent, or are they things that are just being excluded from this GMP?
Well, like, for example, sometimes we exclude a spec section because, or like controls, because we haven't bid that yet in the future. You know, sometimes we put exclusions for, hazardous material, like in the elementary school or something. Now, I don't have those in front of me or all of them. What that means is, we're just making some assumptions. We still talk through that with the core team and go through that. Just because it's in the GMP doesn't mean it's the final version. There may be some edits left or up or down a little bit yet, but because of time, we're just trying to get these things pulled together.
And then in June, when we have these numbers in front of us and have a real clear picture of where we think we'll be, is it too late for savings other than bidding type savings? I mean, I would hate to have to change things because I think we have a great plan. But if we are significantly over, how can we manage that?
We are going to bring back cost-saving ideas to the team, and that will go well past after we get the numbers. In my mind, I think we just talked yesterday about sometimes we bring back ideas that teams don't like or want, but that's not our place to make that decision. Typically, we try to not to impact the scope or value of the project.
Yeah, to that point, we all want to keep the project moving forward, and the sooner we can get back the numbers with options will give us the best chance to be able to make some decisions on our side.
Correct.
And also at this point, what's your best guess, and I know it's a guess, on future supply chain and labor issues? Because my big fear, because we all know that delays cost money.
Right now, getting, what would I call it? Dedications from suppliers is extremely difficult. We're finding out every day that if you go to, we just opened up a health center up in Dayton, and there was a change that had to happen at the end of the job, and just getting breakers for a panel to go from like a 50 amp to a 100 amp was like a 16-week lead time to get that breaker. Now, we work through that. We have a lot of resources, but it's sort of the way the world is we're dealing with, and we're trying to mitigate that as much as we can. There is risk with material deliveries in the job.
And we have had a discussion with the team that if there are any delays, we need to know about them immediately because it not just affects us financially, but also operationally. We've got kids in lots of different places right now, and if anything changes with the date of completion, we're going to have to pivot and make other plans. So the team is aware that that is crucial, and that information is need to know as soon as we get it.
Mike, could you chime in on your perspective at all? Is this kind of where you would expect this project to be? I know maybe just for people watching, just kind of give a statement on the process of how you're involved in this, reviewing the numbers on behalf of the district, and I guess give us your kind of high-level overview of where things stand.
Really high level, looking at this project and a number of projects that we're working on and just really trying to draw a comparison to where we are. Most recently, we had a board meeting last night, and we just had a final GMP for a project not too far from here. And the overall project, on the final GMP, ended up 12.5% over. Again, we're working with districts all over Ohio, and we're running into the same problem, and it's tough. It's tough for the administration, it's tough for the boards, it's tough for the teams. I really feel that, Pete has, and his team have done, a very good job of trying to keep the costs down. There are a lot of factors that go into this. You talk about, lead times. You talk about availability, not just of materials, but of labor. It's a difficult time. We're navigating our way through it. We will always look out for the district's best interest, and we expect that of the entire team. We want you to make very, very informed and very sound decisions in moving forward. I'm not really aware of other projects that are bidding. We're doing estimating, and we're seeing the same thing. Right now, the OFCC, probably the largest in the state of Ohio that does construction everywhere. They have updated their cost calculator to reflect a 17% and up to a 25%, depending on which region you are in Ohio. So they're fully aware of the market. So it's a difficult time, but, we're going to work through it. We're going to do the very best we can in getting the costs down. We're not done. Again, we've got a $6 million issue, but I think through some hard work where we can look at options that are available as far as bringing the cost down without giving up quality and the aesthetics that I know are going to be very important to Indian Hill. But there may be opportunities that, we can not sacrifice quality, bring the cost down, and we want to get that number as low as we can.
Mike, I think, first of all, I appreciate all you're doing for us and the team. I think as I'm sitting back and looking at this, it makes pretty well logical sense. I think one of the things that I know you guys are thinking about, but I think we should put extra attention on is, we're $6 million over right now. We've got a contingency of 3.2, so net we're 2.8, right? Obviously, there's still a substantial amount left. Is really, really locking in on protecting us against change orders and protecting that 3.2, because if we can protect against change orders and those kind of deltas that will chew up that 3.2 and we can save that, then we're in a position where that 6 doesn't sting as bad. So I know in the craziness of what's going on, if we can really, as a team, try to make sure that we're not, we're going to have change orders and things that happen, but if we can do our best to really be thinking through, okay, making sure that we don't gobble into that, then I think it'll take the sting off of what the market's putting on us.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that will help us, everybody's fully aware of the contingency and our desire to hang on to that money. We've made that abundantly clear from the very beginning. But I think something else that will help us is the work that, the project team, the administration, and the board, through your work as well, really getting everything final as far as the design, the look you want, how you want the buildings to feel. I think everybody's done a very good job in that respect. So that tells me that there's probably not going to be a lot of owner requested change orders, which what we typically find in the co-funded arena through OFCC. It's a little different approach. You try to hang on to that money, get out of the ground where you've mitigated most of your risk. And then the second milestone is when you get under roof, now you've pretty much mitigated all of your risk. So even weather can't impact the project. So that's when you start releasing some of the owner contingency to do some of those things that you thought you couldn't afford, or maybe you couldn't afford in the very beginning, but now when you're 50% complete, you can, just like, floor tile. Maybe you were settling on one quality, one level of quality, you can actually take it up, certain things like that. So I think here, there probably won't be that, you won't be taking that approach, the owner requested change order. So anything outside of maybe unforeseen field conditions, I think we should do a pretty good job of hanging on to the owner contingency. Just
Mike,
for that purpose. Yes.
Just to review and add to Mr. Marks's comment there, when will we have that high-level review? We're going to finish design process in June. At what point will we have that discussion with the board when we take a look at contingency after that first milestone? Will that be September? Will that be August? When will that be?
Again, looking at the entire district, I think what I just mentioned, when you get out of the ground, I think we need to take a pretty good look at, have we had to use any contingency funds for unforeseen field conditions?
My understanding when we met with the project team, that would probably be no later than the September board meeting.
Should be.
Okay.
I think we should have a pretty good idea there. But again, I think I would also want to look, downstream, when are we going to see ourselves enclosed or under roof?
That would be the next milestone.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll
Yes.
nail down those milestone timelines so the board knows which meetings to expect some of that dialogue.
And our contingency meeting will be a little different, I think, than what Mike's describing. Ours are just going to simply be a review, and then that money is going to be used against all of the market
And then,
issues we have.
just, Mike, you made a comment, just made me think. You're talking about things like floor tiles and finishes. That's all included in these numbers, correct? That we're already
Yes,
seeing? Okay.
that is correct.
Okay.
That is correct. And again, just so you can put it in perspective, oftentimes when you're going through the estimating, through the design phases, you find out you're over budget. So you have to value engineer things out. One of the things that we have really worked hard on is not doing that here, because we know how important the look and the feel and the level of quality of the materials that go into this building. We just did not want to sacrifice that. We could do that, and obviously we could probably get back on budget, but you're going to be giving up, I think, things that are going to be very important to you. I mean, this is legacy stuff. I mean, you get this opportunity maybe once every 50 years. You want to get it right. You want the very best. And I think that's our understanding, is the district wants the very best, and we're working hard to make sure you get that.
I'm going to make a motion unless anybody has any other. So I'd like to make a motion to approve item 5A1, 2, and 3.
Second.
Mr. Marks?
Yes.
Mr. Summerall?
Yes.
Mrs. Eichholz?
Aye. Yes.
Mrs.
Sorry.
Singh?
Yes.
Mr. Tullis?
Yes. Thank you, everybody. Any other items, Kirk?
No other business
Is
today.
there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.